Layla woke to the hum of passing cars and the faint scent of instant ramen simmering on the stove. Their tiny apartment, 2 rooms, peeling paint, and a single window that rattled with every gust, felt colder than ever this morning. She scooped noodles into a chip bowl, careful not to burn her fingers on the scalding broth. Chris lay sprawled on the threadbare couch, laptop balanced on his knees, eyes bloodshot from another all-night coding session. "Morning," she said softly, sliding onto the edge of the couch. He glanced up, managed a tired grin. "Morning. How many cups have you had today?" "2," Layla admitted, spooning noodles into her mouth. "And I've only got enough ramen packets for 2 more days." Chris winced. He closed his laptop with a decisive snap. "I know. I'm sorry. Just one more feature, I swear." Layla studied his face. So driven, so hopeful. He'd traded sleep for lines of code, believing this app could change everything. Investors had shown interest, but interest didn't pay rent. She swallowed the last of her noodles and placed the empty bowl on the coffee table, next to a pile of overdue bills. "Rent's due tomorrow," she reminded him, voice gentle but firm. "I know," he said, voice distant. "I'll pitch to the angel investor today. I've got that meeting." Her heart fluttered. This was the meeting that could make or break them. She nodded, smoothing her apron. "Good. I'll cover the meter and buy groceries afterward." He offered tentative thanks. She reached over, ran a hand through his unruly hair. "We'll get through this." Later, on the rooftop, they found their nightly sanctuary. The fire escape creaked beneath their feet as they climbed, but above the city's chaos there was calm. They sat side by side, legs dangling over corrugated metal, gazing at a skyline framed by distant neon. "Do you ever think about giving up?" Layla asked, voice almost lost in the wind. He shook his head. "Not when you believe in me." Her chest warmed. She rested her head on his shoulder. "We'll look back at nights like this someday." Chris opened his laptop again, fingers flying over the keyboard. "Just one more demo polish," he muttered. Layla closed her eyes, inhaling the night air. Below them, the city pulsed with life. Honking taxis, shouts in alleyways, the distant hum of generators. Above them, the sky stretched infinitely, studded with stars they rarely noticed. In that moment, on that rooftop, it felt like anything was possible. She believed it. They woke to rain beating against the window pane. Chris's investor meeting was this afternoon, and Layla had stayed up late researching his credentials. The clock ticked loudly on the wall, a mocking reminder that time, like money, was slipping away. She rummaged through her purse and pulled out crumpled bills, 3 20s, 2 10s, and a single $5 note. 500 naira. Not nearly enough. Chris emerged from the bedroom in a rumpled shirt. "I overslept," he groaned, rushing to grab his tie. She pressed the bills into his hand. "Take this. Groceries, transport, even if it's just a bus fare." He stared at her, conflicted. "Layla, I can't take your savings." Her jaw set. "This is my savings. You'll need it more than I do." He hesitated, thumb stroking the edge of the top bill. "You're sure?" She nodded. "We'll manage somehow. Go make that impression." He kissed her forehead and squeezed her hand. "You're a saint." Layla waved him off. "Just come back with good news." The apartment felt emptier once he left. She sat at the small kitchen table, fingers tapping the wood, mind racing through scenarios of success and failure. If Chris secured the investment, they could pay rent, perhaps even afford a modest celebration. If he failed, the words unspoken hovered in the stale air. Hours crawled by. Thunder rolled in the distance. Layla paced the cramped living room, replaying every confidence-shaking moment she'd witnessed in his rehearsals. At last, her phone buzzed. "Investor meeting complete. We'll update shortly." Her breath caught. She stared at the message for several heartbeats before exhaling. Hope and dread warred in her chest. Chris returned at dawn, drenched and triumphant. His eyes glowed with exhaustion and something else. Excitement. He closed the door behind him, shedding his soaked jacket. "They loved it," he announced. "They've agreed to seed funding. 6 million naira over 3 tranches." Layla's mouth went dry. "You got it." He nodded, pulling her into an embrace. All because of you. I told them your sacrifices are the backbone of this startup. Tears blurred her vision. I did what I had to. He stepped back, took her hands. Listen to me. When this is all over, we'll both walk away with our dreams intact. I promise. In the golden light of dawn, they sat on the couch, hands intertwined. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, the city yawning awake. Chris recounted every detail, the investor's questions, his impromptu pivot, the final handshake. Layla listened, heart swelling. At 2 a.m., he made his pledge. No success without you. I swear on every line of code I've ever written. She looked up, faith and love shining in her tired eyes. Then it settled. They fell asleep in each other's arms, two dreamers buoyed by shared promise, unaware that the tides were already turning beneath their fragile hopes. Weeks passed in a blur of unbeatable schedules. Layla's restaurant shifts stretched into the early morning. Chris's coding sessions bled into every spare minute. She stocked up on extra uniforms, endured stiff managers, and hid her bruises from falling trays. He survived on coffee, energy bars, and the promise of success. One evening, Layla arrived home to discover Chris asleep at the dining table, half-finished pizza growing cold under a stack of pitched documents. She shook her head. You need rest. He blinked awake, voice hoarse. Can't. Demo is tomorrow. She rubbed his shoulders. You'll burn out. He managed a short laugh. Then burn so I can rise. Her heart clenched. She kissed his cheek. I'll get you coffee. Back at the restaurant, Layla's boss barked orders. She balanced trays and took orders, her mind floating back to that cramped apartment. Every naira earned meant another page of code polished. When she finally got home, she found Chris pacing, anxiety etched on his face. She placed a steaming mug in his hands. Here. He wrapped his fingers around the cup. Thanks. They stood together in silence, two silhouettes against a backdrop of blinking streetlights, each sacrifice woven into their shared dream, her blood, sweat, and tears fueling his ascent. On a humid afternoon, as Layla hauled dishes from table 5, Brielle breezed into the restaurant, tall, impeccably dressed, and impossibly radiant. Layla's breath caught. Brielle's smile was a memory from a better time. Childhood sleepovers, schoolyard secrets, and carefree laughter. Layla. Brielle's voice was warm, tinged with surprise. Is that you? Layla nodded, forcing a smile. Brielle? Wow, it's been years. Brielle glanced around, noting the cramped quarters and dated decor. I'm looking for a friend, she said, then paused. Actually a favor. Layla's chest tightened. Anything. Brielle bit her lip. I'm between apartments. Could I crash here for a few days? Layla sucked in a breath. She looked past Brielle to the cramped back room, memory of unpaid rent flashing in her mind. But friendship meant more. Of course, she replied. Come on back. As Brielle stepped inside, Layla sensed a shift, a new actor entering their fragile play. Chris returned then, sweaty from a code sprint. He paused at the doorway, eyes widening at the stranger in his home. Brielle, he said slowly. Is that you? Layla met his gaze. Long story, she murmured. And as Brielle's suitcase thudded on the floor, Layla realized their world was about to change in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Chris woke before dawn to the soft glow of his phone. Invitation. Shark Tank, Nigeria. His pulse thundered in his ears as he reread the text. 6 million naira in seed funding lay on the line, but presenting before a panel of ruthless investors on national television felt like stepping onto a battlefield. He pictured the bright studio lights, the rows of cameras, and the stern faces of the sharks. Zara Okoye, Abdul Karim, Ngozi, and Tun Bello. Each was known for cutting pictures to shreds. He forced himself to breathe. At the diner where Layla worked, she read Chris's message during a lull, plates clattering in her arms. Her heart leapt. When her shift ended, she found him in their tiny living room, pacing in front of the cracked window. He showed her the details. Date, time, dress code, elevator pitch guidelines. They hugged, trembling. We did this together, he whispered. We'll do this together. They sat on the chip sofa, heads together under a single lamp, practicing introductions in hushed tones until midnight. Their rooftop, where they once stargazed, became their stage. Layla portrayed skeptical investors, demanding numbers and milestones. Chris adapted on the fly, refining each line to perfection. She watched him transform anxiety into confident rhythm. When fatigue set in, they paused, sharing a single cup of strong coffee, gazing at the city below. It pulsed with potential, and for the first time, they felt in sync with its heartbeat. On the morning of the audition, they boarded the bus in silence. Layla clutched her notebook of talking points. Chris adjusted his crisp shirt and tie with trembling fingers. As the studio's glass doors loomed, she squeezed his hand. "You've got this," she said. He nodded, swallowing hard. Inside the cavernous soundstage, incandescent beams crisscrossed above. The sharks lounged on an elevated platform, exuding authority. Contestants in line whispered strategies, glanced nervously at their notes. When their names were called, Clientech Innovations, represented by Chris Obiora and Layla Ease, Chris stood, introduced them, and launched into his pitch. He spoke of user pain points, data-driven solutions, and scalable algorithms. Layla watched from the bench, heart pounding, as he answered tough questions with poise. Then Zara leaned forward. "Your traction is impressive, but where's your revenue?" Her tone was calm but lethal. Cameras zoomed in. Chris blinked, hesitated, and in that split second, Layla knew the outcome hung on his next words. After Shark Tank, success arrived like an avalanche. Investors called with term sheets. Media outlets requested interviews. Startup blogs highlighted their story. Chris dove into back-to-back meetings, pitch decks, and strategic planning sessions. Layla's role shifted overnight, from supportive partner to on-call operations manager. She scheduled site visits, managed vendor contracts, and fielded frantic investor texts when Chris was unavailable. At first, Layla reveled in the whirlwind. They toasted with instant noodles on the rooftop, laughter echoing against brick walls. But as days blurred, she noticed the space between them widening. Chris spent nights in the office, his phone pressed to his ear, his eyes glazed over spreadsheets. Messages from Brielle, Layla's glamorous childhood friend, began to pepper his inbox. She tagged along to dinners, investor galas, and pitch parties, always asking to help or network. One evening, Layla arrived early at Chris's investor dinner to surprise him. Instead, she spotted Brielle in a designer dress, twirling a wine glass in his hand. Brielle's laughter rang through the marble hall. Chris's eyes lit up when she walked in, just a flicker, but enough for Layla's stomach to knot. She forced a smile, greeting Brielle with polite warmth. Brielle hugged her, not quite wholeheartedly, and winked at Chris. As husband and wife, they once shared every dream. Now, when Layla tried to talk startup strategy, Chris's attention lingered on Brielle's boundary-pushing charm and insider Rolodex. He'd introduced Brielle as a mentor, a valuable advisor, or worst of all, the woman who connected me to this investor. Layla's contributions were never mentioned. At home, Layla waited in the kitchen for hours. Plates grew cold, pots sat half-washed. Chris finally strolled in near midnight. His eyes were bright, but not at her. He launched into a story about Brielle's networking prowess, oblivious to the ache behind Layla's forced smile. She nodded, heart heavy, wondering how the person she loved most could become so distant. Later, on their rooftop, Layla dared to speak. "We haven't talked like this in days." Chris stared at the skyline, fingers wrapped around his phone. "Just trust the process," he murmured. And as he turned away, Layla realized their foundation had begun to crack under the weight of ambition and betrayal. It was a Thursday when Layla found the stain. She'd pulled Chris's hoodie from the laundry hamper, ready to toss it in the wash. A smear of red across the shoulder caught her eye, crimson lipstick deep and glossy. Her heart stumbled. She pressed a fingertip against the mark, firm, fresh. She confronted Chris that night over leftover rice. "This isn't mine," she said quietly. His spoon paused midair. He studied her face beneath the kitchen's yellow bulb. He stumbled for an explanation, but the room felt too small for truth. "Brielle," he said finally, voice soft. She's going through a rough patch. I gave her a hug. Layla laughed, bitter and hollow. A hug that leaves lipstick. Her eyes stung. Chris looked down, shame creeping into his features. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said. She just what? Layla demanded. The anger surged, a blazing current. You've erased me from dinner parties, from social media, from your stories. Now you hide proof of her on your clothes. She flung the hoodie across the table. It landed at his feet. He reached out, but she recoiled. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm under pressure. Pressure. Layla's voice cracked. We both are. But I haven't traded my loyalty for attention. I work 2 jobs. I build our dream. Tears welled in her eyes. He stood, helpless, and laid a hand on her shoulder. She shrugged him off, stepping back. That night, Layla slept on the couch. In the darkness, she replayed every moment since Brielle's return. The whispered phone calls, the late-night meetings, the stolen smiles. She wondered when love had turned into betrayal. And with the red stain still vivid in her mind, she knew their story teetered on the edge of collapse. The next morning, Layla woke to the chime of a notification from Chris's phone, an alert from Instagram. Curious, she scrolled through his feed before he could stop her. The collage of their early days, rooftop selfies, ramen dinners, handwritten notes, was gone. In its place, chic images of Chris at conferences, smiling broadly with investors and mentors. Brielle appeared in half of them. Her chest tightened. Slipping from bed, she opened her laptop and logged into their shared cloud album. The memories folder was empty too. Every snapshot of their journey, every candid laugh, every milestone erased. Panic and heartbreak mingled. She felt stripped of their history. They had built this life together. Now it was as if she had never existed. She paced their living room, phone in hand, waiting for him to wake. When he finally appeared, bleary-eyed, she held the device out. Why? Chris rubbed his temples. Our social media strategy changed. We're rebranding. Rebranding. Her voice trembled. Our story, our faces, our love, just gone. Tears threatened. He took the phone gently. I'm sorry. We needed a fresh image for investors. It's business. Layla's vision blurred. Business, she echoed. You promised we'd both make it, but you're willing to erase me for business. He hesitated, guilt flickering. I didn't mean to hurt you. She closed the laptop with a snap. I need space. She retreated to the bedroom, shutting the door. The apartment felt colder without him. Alone, Layla pressed her back against the door, sliding down until her knees hit the floor. Their memories, once a tapestry of hope, were now unraveling. 2 days later, Chris was scheduled to present at a high-profile investment dinner, an event promising international backers and media coverage. He called Layla from the car, voice bright. I'll see you there. Layla hesitated. The last time she attended such a gathering, she'd carried him through every obstacle. Now, she wondered if her presence was merely habitual, an accessory rather than partner. Still, she dressed carefully, an emerald sheath, pearls collected over years, heels that made her feel powerful. Chris greeted her with a brief smile and a guiding hand. They entered a grand hall, chandeliers dripping crystal, white-gloved servers gliding between tables, laughter mingling with the clink of glasses. Layla spotted investors she recognized from news articles, hard men and women in tailored suits. Brielle stood beside Chris at the head table, sipping champagne. She offered a dazzling smile that made Layla's chest tighten. At their table, Chris introduced Layla as my operations lead and co-founder. The words sounded formal, polished, yet distant. Brielle leaned forward, whispering into Chris's ear. They exchanged a private joke. Chris laughed. Layla managed a polite nod, heart sinking. A server brought the first course, lobster bisque, while the keynote speaker droned on about market trends. Layla attempted small talk with a nearby venture capitalist, but her words felt hollow. Across the table, Brielle tooled with her wine, her eyes veiled with knowing amusement. Layla imagined the photos that would circulate after tonight. Chris and Brielle, triumphant. Layla merely a footnote. During the applause that followed Chris's brief toast, cameras flashed. Layla stood, lifted her champagne flute, and forced a toast. To new beginnings. Chris smiled at her, hesitant, apologetic. She caught Brielle's eye for a moment. The other woman's smile faltered just enough. As the night deepened, Layla realized this was her final performance in Chris's narrative. She sipped her champagne and made a silent vow. If she could be erased from his story, she'd write her own, one where her name would never fade away. The morning light slanted through the blinds as Layla scrolled her phone, bleary-eyed and half asleep. A push notification from a wedding registry blog caught her attention. Chris Obiora and Brielle Amati. Her chest tightened. She tapped the link with trembling fingers. There it was, a polished website, complete with engagement photos, a countdown timer, and RSVP buttons. Chris and Brielle's smiling faces filled the screen. Him in a crisp suit, her in a sleek white gown, their hands entwined around a bouquet of peonies. Layla's breath caught in her throat. She dropped the phone onto the sofa cushion. She stared at the URL, chrisandbrielle2025.com. No mention of her name. No nod to the woman who'd invested her last kobo to build his dream. A carousel of slideshows showcased the story. From startup to stardom. How Brielle fueled our success. Join us as we say adieu. Every detail, wedding date, venue at the Grand Lagos City Hall, registry links, felt like salt poured into her wounds. She swiped through testimonials from mutual friends, praising Brielle's invaluable mentorship and visionary support. The betrayal stung so sharply she felt nauseous. Chris emerged from the bedroom, buttoning his shirt. "Morning," he said, brushing past her. He frowned when he saw her pale face. "Layla, you okay?" She held up her phone, voice trembling. "Explain this." She tapped the website link, thrusting it toward him. His expression flickered from surprise to guilt to annoyance. It's not what you think." "What I think?" Layla's voice rose. "I think you built an entire wedding page without telling me. Without telling us." She paced the living room, phone clutched to her chest. "We promised we'd share everything. You promised we'd both make it." He ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't want to upset you. It's just, Brielle's family insisted on handling the website as a favor." She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "A favor? You erased me from our story, from our successes, from our memories." Her eyes burned. He sighed, shoulders slumping. "I'm sorry. I thought it would be easier if I told you later." Later. Layla's hand shook. When the invites were in the mail, when the guests started asking about registry gifts. She paused, voice cracking. "When you'd already erased our history from social media?" He reached for her, but she stepped back. "Don't," she whispered. "I need time." As he retreated to the bedroom, Layla sank onto the couch, phone still in hand. The website's countdown ticked mercilessly. 30 days to the wedding. She felt every second slipping away, the life they built crumbling. But beneath the hurt, a fierce resolve ignited. If he wanted to erase her, she'd rewrite her own story, one where she owned her worth. Tonight, she would call the journalist who'd covered Shark Tank. Tomorrow, she would plan her public comeback. She closed her eyes and whispered, "This ends on my terms." That evening, Layla stood in the doorway of the lavish venue. Crystal chandeliers, white roses lining the aisle, gold-trimmed chairs. Her heart pounded like thunder. A single invite lay clasped in her hand. "Layla Obiora, kindly decline." The card was embossed, formal, cruel. She tore it in half, petals drifting from the torn edges like wounded birds. A waiter hovered, puzzled. She dropped the pieces into her purse and turned away. Inside, Chris and Brielle laughed beneath a canopy of fairy lights during their engagement party's rehearsal dinner. Guests sipped champagne, exchanged toasts. A string quartet played softly. Layla watched from the back, hidden by a cluster of ferns. Her chest ached as Chris raised his glass. "To Brielle, my partner, my love, my future wife," he declared. Brielle beamed. The room erupted in applause. No mention of Layla. No nod to the woman who'd risked everything. Tears stung Layla's eyes. She remembered their rooftop vows, his promise to share every victory. Now he stood before their friends, reciting vows meant for someone else. She slid out of the shadows, footsteps silent on marble. No one noticed until she cleared her throat. Silence snapped through the crowd like a whip. "Chris," she said, voice firm. He froze. Brielle turned, eyebrows raised. "This is Layla," he stammered. "My former partner," Layla finished. "The woman who co-founded your company, wired your pitch deck, and believed in you when no one else did." Her gaze swept the assembled faces, investors, mentors, distant acquaintances. "Yet I'm not invited to celebrate the person I helped build." Murmurs rippled through the room. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Brielle's smile faltered. She took a step forward. "Layla." "Save it," Layla cut in. "I didn't come for apologies." She lifted her chin. "I came to show you what erasing someone looks like." She held up her torn invite. "You can't delete history. You can't delete me." With that, she turned on her heel and strode out, leaving stunned silence behind her. Outside, she sank onto a bench under a jacaranda tree. Petals rained around her like fragile confessions. Her phone buzzed, a message from a top tech podcast host. "Saw what happened. Can we talk?" Layla exhaled, heart racing. Tonight, she'd been uninvited from their celebration, but tomorrow, she'd be front page. The next morning, Layla's phone exploded with notifications. Videos of her confrontation had gone viral. Millions of views, countless comments. She had every right. "He's a monster. Where's justice for Layla?" But alongside the support came venom. "She's just jealous." Drama queen. She cost him a partnership. The smear campaign stung as badly as his betrayal. At Cowork Limited, Layla arrived to find security footage from rehearsals leaked online. HR summoned her to the conference room, faces stern. "Ms. Obiora, we've received multiple complaints about your conduct at last night's event." The HR head began. "Ejections from company gatherings, disrupting business relations." Layla's mouth fell open. "I was uninvited," she said, voice cold. "I spoke the truth." "What's this about truth?" the legal counsel interjected. "Posting private security footage on social media, disclosing proprietary investor information. These are serious violations." Their eyes bored into her. "We're launching an internal investigation." Layla felt her world tilt. The very company she co-founded was now framing her as the villain. She raised her chin. "I have emails proving I'm co-owner. I have bank transfers showing my investments. If you want an investigation, investigate him too." They exchanged uneasy glances. The HR had cleared his throat. "We'll consider your evidence." The meeting ended. Layla left with her head held high, but inside she felt fractured, blamed for standing up, punished for refusing to disappear. Outside, the press hounded her. Flashing cameras, shouting microphones. "Layla, did you regret your decision? Will you apologize? Is this about revenge?" She ignored them, weaving through the crowd, chambering anger into resolve. Brielle's next Instagram post tagged Chris at an exclusive gala. Crystal goblets and designer gowns. Layla scrolled past, lips pressed in a thin line. That night, she sat at her laptop, drafting her own statement. A measured account of facts, screenshots of deleted social posts, copies of their partnership agreement. She pressed publish just before midnight. The official narrative was changing. Layla would be heard. Layla pored over bank statements, cross-referencing transactions from 5 months ago. A transfer of 2 million Nigerian nairas, her entire life savings, should have been routed to their joint company account. Instead, the ledger showed no record. Panic and fury surged. She picked up her phone, dialing the bank's fraud department. After endless hold music, a clerk confirmed her fear. That transfer was reversed at the beneficiary's request. Her blood ran cold. Who could reverse it but Chris? She jammed the phone down and confronted him at the office. He looked up from his desk, feigning surprise. "Layla, what's wrong?" She slammed the printed bank slip on his desk. "Explain this." He leaned back. "It was a mistake." "A mistake?" she echoed, voice trembling. "You stole my money." He sighed. "I needed to reallocate funds. We were overextended." "Overextended?" Layla spat. You took my savings and gambled with it, without telling me. She paced across the polished floor. You erased me, then stole from me. Chris stood, eyes pleading. I wanted to secure a bridge loan. It was the only way to keep us afloat. She shook her head. You couldn't trust me? Her voice cracked. You erased my contributions. You erased my trust. She grabbed her purse. I'm done. Walking out. Layla felt every step solidify her decision. He could take her money. He could rewrite history, but he could never steal her strength. Outside, she hailed a cab and directed it to the fintech incubator where she'd pitched 6 weeks earlier. Tomorrow, she'd meet with mentors on her own terms. By dawn, Layla's tearful TikTok confession had vaulted her into overnight sensation. In the video, she sat against a bare wall, makeup streaked from crying, voice steady but raw. I was wiped from my own life. I gave him my last kobo, my sweat, my loyalty. He erased my name, my face, my money, but he couldn't erase my truth. Clips flashed, the torn wedding invite, the stolen bank transfer, the HR summons. She tagged Chris's handle and the company's official account. Within hours, comments poured in. I stand with Layla. She's a hero. Where's justice? Influencers stitched the video, adding angry reactions. Tech blogs ran headlines. Startup co-founder speaks out. Layla watched the view counter climb. 200,000. 500,000, a million. Adrenaline hammered in her veins. A DM notification popped up. Layla, we're investors from Dubai. Let's talk. Another. Can we feature you on our podcast? Her phone buzzed incessantly. She realized her moment had arrived. She rose from her chair, cheeks flushed with triumph. The world had witnessed her truth. In the reflection of her window, she saw not a broken woman, but a force of nature. Tomorrow, she would step into the spotlight, on her own terms, with her own name blazing across every headline. She whispered to herself, let them erase me. I'll make them remember me. Layla stared at her phone, heart pounding as the view count spun upward. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. Hashtag you deserve better trended across Twitter and TikTok. She reread comments. This is the real hero story. I'm crying, she's me. Layla for president. Notifications flooded in, celebrity retweets, influencer duets, and even news anchors quoting her lines. In her makeshift home office, Layla clicked through messages. One from a top women's network. Can we feature you in our weekly newsletter? Another from a global nonprofit. We'd love to partner on your mission to empower female founders. Her inbox overflowed. She pressed the call button on Zoom. Within seconds, the face of Chica, head of a prominent tech incubator, appeared. Layla, you've sparked a movement. Chica said, voice warm. We want to help you formalize this momentum. Are you free for a strategic session tomorrow? Oh yes, Layla replied, swallowing tears. Thank you. After hanging up, she sank into her chair, letting the magnitude of the moment wash over her. Just days ago, she was uninvited from the only wedding she ever helped build. Now she was being lauded globally. Her phone buzzed again, this time a group chat with her closest friends, Saad and Ketchi, and Amina. Saad, girl, this is insane. I've never seen anything like it. Ketchi, you've inspired so many of us. What's next? Amina, I'm making a fundraiser on GoFundHer. Let's support Layla Incorporated. Layla typed, you guys are the best. I'm meeting with Chica tomorrow. I want to build a platform for women to share their startup stories. As she closed the chat, her gaze drifted to the framed photo on her desk, a rooftop selfie of her and Chris from Chapter 1. It looked like a memory from another lifetime. She tapped the frame, as if finally letting go of the ghosts that haunted it. That evening, on a live interview with a major morning show, Layla sat poised in a crisp blazer. The anchor asked, why do you think your story resonated so deeply? Layla took a breath, then spoke with calm conviction. Because too many women, too many people feel unseen. We give everything to help someone else build their dream, only to be erased when it suits them. I wanted to show that it doesn't have to end there. You deserve better. Applause echoed through the studio. and Layla felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized her voice had become her power, stronger than any investor pitch, sharper than any betrayal. As she logged off, the final notification pinged. "Layla, Netflix producer here. Let's talk." She smiled, exhaling a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The world had heard her truth. Now it was time to turn that truth into change. The next morning, Layla ushered her small team into a bright co-working space downtown. White walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the hum of entrepreneurs typing away gave the office an energy she hadn't felt in months. A sleek sign above a reclaimed wood desk read, "Layla Inc." Her first hire, Marcus, a branding specialist, stood ready with a notebook. "Congratulations on the momentum," he said, offering a firm handshake. "I've sketched out some logo concepts inspired by your story. Strong lines, upward arrows, vibrant colors." Layla ran a hand through her hair, excitement crackling. "Show me." Marcus projected mock-ups onto the wall. A phoenix rising, hands breaking chains, bold typography. Layla lit up. "I want something that feels like reclaiming power, like a roar after silence." They tweaked colors and fonts, debating curves versus angles. Meanwhile, Layla's phone buzzed with calendar invites, meetings with potential board members, webinar slots on entrepreneurship panels, a keynote at an upcoming women's conference. At noon, she welcomed her first client, Sola, a single mother with a mobile payment app prototype. Sola's hands trembled as she handed over her pitch deck. "I don't know if I'm cut out for this," she admitted. Layla smiled warmly. "You are. Let me show you how to frame your story, just like I did." They spent the afternoon refining Sola's narrative, crafting a compelling opening. "I built a bridge between street vendors and customers because my mother struggled to get digital payments at her market stall." Sola's face brightened as confidence replaced doubt. "I've never thought of it that way." By evening, Layla had mentored 3 more founders, each leaving with clearer vision and renewed purpose. As she locked up, Marcus waved. "Tomorrow, we finalize your website and launch your first accelerator cohort." Alone in the quiet office, Layla gazed at the logo taped to the wall. She thought back to the day Chris deleted her, how small she'd felt. Now, she was a leader, a beacon for others. She whispered to the empty room, "We're just getting started." Stepping out into the golden sunset, Layla felt the weight of her past fall away. Layla Incorporated wasn't just a company. It was a movement born of betrayal and fueled by resilience. And as the city lights flickered on, she knew this was only Act 4, Scene 2 of her story, and the best was yet to come. Layla's phone buzzed during a client call. She checked the subject line, "Netflix Originals Story Option Inquiry." Her heart stuttered. She clicked the email, skimming the first lines. "Dear Ms. Obiora, your story has ignited conversations around the globe. We believe it would translate powerfully to our platform. We'd like to discuss optioning the rights to your journey for a limited series." Her coffee cup rattled in her hand. She covered the camera on her laptop, excusing herself. In the hallway, she let out a shaky laugh, pressing her back against the cool wall. A part of her still couldn't believe it. Netflix wanted her story. She dialed the number at the bottom of the email. "Hello, this is Layla Obiora," she said, voice trembling with excitement. "Ms. Obiora, hi, I'm Aisha from Netflix Originals," came the warm reply. "Are you available to chat now?" They spoke for nearly half an hour. Aisha described their vision, a 6-episode arc following Layla's rise from rented rooftops to global recognition, emphasizing her activism, her heartbreak, and ultimately her triumph. She asked about key scenes, the rooftop code sessions, the viral TikTok confession, the courtroom showdown yet to come. Layla realized they hadn't even reached chapter 23 yet. "There's more to my journey," she said. "But these moments shaped everything." Aisha laughed softly. "That's exactly what makes it compelling. We want authenticity, the real you." Layla agreed to send detailed notes, some exclusive footage, and permission to interview her mentors. As she hung up, a sense of disbelief washed over her. From erased co-founder to Netflix-worthy protagonist, it felt like a dream. Back at her desk, she drafted a response. "Gratitude. excitement, and a few clarifying questions about budget and timeline. She reviewed it twice before hitting send. That evening, Layla shared the news with her team in a celebratory Zoom huddle. Marcus popped virtual confetti, Sola cheered, and Amina wiped tears of joy. Even over a screen, the camaraderie pulsed. As Layla prepared for bed, she placed her phone on the nightstand. In the dim glow, she whispered, "We're on Netflix." Closing her eyes, she dreamed of cameras rolling, of actresses capturing her pain and power, of turning her narrative into a beacon for millions. At 2:17 p.m., Layla's phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Direct message from Brielle Amati. Her heart thudded. Brielle, whose betrayal had cut deepest, was reaching out. She unlocked the DM. The message read, "Layla, I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, but I need you to know that Chris manipulated me too. I thought I was helping, until I saw your video. I'm so sorry. Would you be willing to talk?" Layla's thumb hovered over the screen. Part of her wanted to block Brielle forever. Another part, still idealistic, wanted answers. She stared at the words. Chris manipulated me too. Was it true? Or another ploy? She typed, "Why now?" Moments later, Brielle replied, "Because I found out about the hidden footage. He fooled us both. Meet me at the Olive Lounge tonight at 7? I have proof." Layla exhaled sharply. The Olive Lounge was a mellow jazz bar in Victoria Island, intimate, discreet. She agreed to meet but warned, no games. That evening, Layla arrived to find Brielle seated at a corner table, face pale under soft amber light. A small flash drive lay on the table. Brielle looked up, eyes rimmed with guilt. "Thank you for coming." Layla sat, arms crossed. "You said you have proof." Brielle slid the drive across. "Watch this first." Layla plugged it into her laptop. Security footage played, Chris and Brielle meeting secretly weeks before he staged Layla's erasure. They reviewed social media drafts, deleted files together, and planned the wedding website without Layla's knowledge. Brielle's face appeared tearful as she insisted on the deletion strategy. Chris promised to handle Layla's questions. Layla's stomach churned. Brielle continued, "He lied to both of us. I thought I was helping the startup. I didn't know he was using me to push you out." Layla studied her. "Why risk yourself now?" Brielle's voice quivered. "Because I can't live with this. I want to help you. Maybe we can undo some of the damage together." A tense silence followed. Layla's mind raced, anger, betrayal, doubt. Finally, she closed the laptop. "I'll think about it." Brielle nodded, relief flooding her features. "That's all I can ask." As Layla walked out into the humid night, she felt both empowered and wary. An unexpected ally, or another trap. The flash drive burned in her pocket. Tomorrow, she'd decide her next move. But tonight, she knew her story was far from over. At dawn, Layla sat at her desk in Layla Incorporated, replaying the footage from Brielle's drive. Each frame reinforced the depth of Chris's deception. She paused on a shot. Chris slipping a contract amendment across the cafe table, a clause removing Layla's name from shares. She jotted notes, determined to use this evidence where it mattered most. She drafted an email to her attorney, attaching the footage and bank statements. Subject, urgent, evidence of embezzlement and conspiracy. As she clicked send, a calm resolve settled over her. This was her leverage, her truth made tangible. That afternoon, she arrived at Federal High Court in Abuja. Camera crews and reporters awaited, microphones thrust toward her. "Ms. Obiora," shouted one, "are you seeking justice?" Layla nodded, stepping onto the courthouse steps. Inside, she met her attorney, Mr. Okeke, who led her to the prosecutor's office. She placed a USB drive on the desk. "This contains footage proving Mr. Obiora conspired to erase me and redirect my funds," she said, voice steady. "I request immediate investigation and injunction preventing him from accessing company assets." Officials reviewed the files, expressions shifting from skepticism to concern. After hours of testimony, they agreed to freeze Chris's accounts pending inquiry. A press release went out. Court grants injunction against startup co-founder amid allegations of fraud. Outside, cameras flashed. Layla raised her head high. Reporters clamored. "How do you feel?" She answered, "Today, truth prevailed. No one should ever be erased for ambition." Later, in her office, Layla closed the door and sank into her chair. The board of directors called an emergency meeting, Chris's position now untenable. As dusk fell, her phone rang. It was Aisha from Netflix. "We're ready to start scripting," Aisha said. Layla allowed herself a small smile. From rooftop struggles to courtroom victory, her journey had come full circle. The hidden footage had exposed the betrayal and paved the way for her ultimate triumph. She whispered into the quiet room, "Let them remember my name." Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the windows of the opulent banquet hall, gilded walls reflecting the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. Guests in tuxedos and evening gowns mingled around linen-draped tables, sipping champagne from fluted glasses. At the head of the room, a mannequin bride and groom, Chris and Brielle, stood beside an arch of white roses, poised for what was meant to be a joyful rehearsal dinner. Unseen by most, Layla navigated the back service corridor, clutching a leather portfolio heavy with proof, bank statements, security footage, and the amended contract clause excising her name. She paused outside the private entrance marked Family Only, drew a steadying breath, and stepped through. The server at the door barely registered her presence until she cleared her throat. Silence fell. Plated canapes trembled in startled hands. Chris's face, flushed with victory just moments before, drained of color as he recognized her. Brielle's smile snapped shut. Guests whispered behind their hands. "Layla," Chris began, hand raised in placation. "This isn't." "It is," Layla interrupted, voice firm. She strode to the center of the room, planting the portfolio on a banquet table. Guests encircled her, curious and uneasy. She flipped it open, revealing page after page of ledger entries and video stills. "You promised me partnership. Instead, you stole my funds and erased my name. Now here's the proof." Gasps rippled through the crowd. An investor, Mr. Ajayi, peered over his glasses. "Is this authentic?" he asked, voice low but commanding attention. Layla met his gaze. "Yes, date-stamped bank logs. And this contract amendment." She held up the printed clause. "Signed by him, without my consent." Chris's flush deepened. He stammered, "Layla, this is private." "Not when it's public fraud," she said, voice rising. Tension crackled. Brielle covered her mouth, tears brimming. Servers froze mid-step. Music died. Mr. Ajayi pushed back his chair. "Security, please escort Ms. Obiora and retrieve those documents for verification." Two staffers approached, but before they could take the portfolio, Layla snapped it shut. "These belong to me, but I'll share copies with the board, the press, and the authorities." A hush fell. Chris lunged forward. "Layla, stop this. You're ruining everything." She shook her head. "I'm saving everything." She tapped her phone, sending the files to national news outlets. Instant notifications pinged across guest screens. Headlines announcing co-founder exposes embezzlement at high-profile startup. The hall erupted. Chairs scraped, glasses shattered. Chris slumped against the archway. Brielle's face crumpled. Layla turned to the stunned audience. This wedding never should have happened, because it was built on betrayal. With that, she pivoted and strode out, the echo of her heels a declaration. Her story would not be rewritten by lies. By morning, the fallout was unmistakable. National headlines blazed with Layla's revelations. Startup implodes overnight. Investors withdraw millions. Betrayal at the heart of success. Outside Luxtower's glass facade, reporters clustered, microphones thrust forward. Inside the boardroom, once a room of confident executives, grew tense as lawyers and investors convened emergency sessions. Mr. Ajayi slammed a dossier onto the conference table. "Our term sheets are void. We're pulling funding immediately, effective now." He glanced at his colleagues. A nod passed among them. "We cannot associate with this level of scandal." Chris sat hunched, eyes hollow. "Wait, give me a chance to explain." An investor, Ms. Olatunji, cut him off. "Our money isn't charity. It's reputation. That's gone. She stood, gathering her belongings. Others followed. Within minutes, the majority had exited, leaving only a handful of legal counsel behind. Layla watched via live feed from her office, flanked by her small team. The screen showed Chris rising to address the emptied room. "I apologize," he said, voice echoing in vacant seats. "There were pressures, miscommunications." He stopped as the final investor strode out. The door clicked shut. Silence enveloped him. No applause, no nods, just a vacuum of loss. By noon, a legal injunction froze Chris's personal and business accounts. The app's servers were put on hold, client access suspended. User notifications blinked. Service temporarily unavailable. Social media feeds buzzed with speculation on layoffs, founder resignations, and impending lawsuits. Layla, seated before her team, allowed herself a tight smile. "This is justice in motion," she said softly. Marcus nodded, sending press releases to tech blogs. "We'll offer support to any founders who relied on their platform," he added. "We can help them transition to our accelerator." In their wake, Chris's office sat abandoned, coffee cups dried on the desk, blueprints to destinations never realized. The building's lobby, a deserted monument to ambition gone awry. That evening, Layla walked through a corridor lined with shuttered startup offices. Street lights glinted off puddles. She paused before a mural of her own silhouette, a now famous poster celebrating #YouDeserveBetter. Beside it, someone had scrawled, "Truth prevails." Layla pressed her palm to the brick. From betrayal to empire, her rise had accelerated, and as the city settled into night, she prepared for the next act, cementing her legacy on her own terms. The federal high court was packed. Rows of seats overflowed with media, supporters clad in #Team Layla t-shirts, and curious onlookers. The air thrummed with anticipation. At the front, Judge Onyekachi presided over a bench of polished wood. Layla sat with her attorney, Mr. Okeke, both poised and resolute. Opposite them, Chris and his defense counsel looked smaller than in any boardroom they'd occupied. Mr. Okeke rose to address the court. "Your Honor, we present irrefutable evidence of embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, and conspiracy. The defendant deliberately erased my client's equity, misappropriated funds, and orchestrated her public erasure to conceal his crimes." He gestured to a large screen. Stills from Brielle's footage and bank logs filled the display. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Chris's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. Next, Layla took the stand. Microphone at chin height. She met the court's gaze. "I co-founded that company with my blood, sweat, and tears," she began, voice steady. "I invested every bit of my savings. I believed in our shared dream. Instead, I was erased, robbed, and shamed." She paused, scanning faces in the packed room. "Today, I reclaim my name." A hush fell. Then, as if on cue, the courtroom erupted in applause, soft at first, then louder, until the judge raised a gavel. "Order!" Judge Onyekachi commanded. "This court commends the candor of Ms. Obiora. Based on presented evidence, I hereby rule in favor of the plaintiff. Mr. Obiora's shares shall be redistributed to Ms. Obiora, effectively reinstating her equity, and he is ordered to repay stolen funds with interest. Additionally, a public injunction will bar him from founding or directing any similar enterprise for the next 5 years." Cheers broke out. Layla's supporters wept. Reporters scrambled for quotes. Chris lowered his head, devastated. Brielle sat beside him, tears streaming. Layla met her former partner's eyes for a moment, nodded once, then turned to leave. Cameras flashed as she exited the courtroom, flanked by her legal team. Outside, waiting journalists bombarded her with questions. She smiled, lifted a finger to the mic, and declared clearly, "You built a company on betrayal. I built a brand on truth." That line circulated immediately, headline after headline. The courtroom clapback became her rallying cry. And as she drove away into the bright afternoon, Layla felt vindicated. Her voice was unbreakable, her name unforgettable. The recording studio hummed with low chatter as Layla settled into the plush leather chair opposite the #1 podcast host, Emeka J. Johnson. Microphones hovered like curious listeners, cable snakes draped across the floor. Gigi Allen's soft guitar riff played in the background, setting a contemplative mood. EJ adjusted his headphones. Layla, welcome. Your story has transfixed the nation. How are you feeling today? Layla smiled, eyes bright, grateful, and ready to share more. They began with her early struggles, ramen dinners, rooftop coding, the promise made under starlight. Listeners heard her anecdotes, punctuated by laughter and moments of tension. EJ leaned forward. What was going through your mind when you first saw that wedding website? Layla's smile faded. Shock, disbelief, and then determination. I realized if I didn't stand up, I'd vanish. Her voice softened. That night, I chose truth over silence. EJ nodded. And your TikTok confession, did you expect it to explode the way it did? Layla chuckled. I expected a few supportive comments. Never imagined millions would resonate. She paused. I wanted people to see themselves in my story. Someone who gives everything, then gets erased. The conversation shifted to her new venture, Layla Incorporated. She described mentoring women, launching accelerator cohorts, and her vision for an inclusive tech ecosystem. We're rewriting the narrative, she said. Success shouldn't require sacrificing yourself. EJ looked impressed. What advice would you give to anyone who feels invisible in their own life? Layla met the mic, voice firm. If they erase you, become unforgettable. Share your truth, no matter how vulnerable. Your story is your power. Silence fell. Then EJ exclaimed, Mic drop. Producers laughed. A sound effect punctuated the moment. The chat room and the live stream exploded with applause emojis. As the episode wrapped, EJ asked, What's next for Layla Obiora? She grinned. Global speaking tour, Netflix series, and, of course, empowering more founders. She tipped an imaginary hat, and maybe dinner invitations where I am the honored guest. They signed off with warm thanks. As Layla stepped out into the hallway, headphones dangling around her neck, she felt the weight of her journey distilled into one moment, a mic drop that echoed far beyond the studio walls. Bright stage lights bathed the grand hall of the Lagos Tech Summit in a warm glow as the announcer called, Please welcome Layla Obiora. A sold-out crowd of thousands leapt to their feet, applause reverberating off mirrored walls. Layla paused backstage, taking in the hum of collective excitement. She straightened her blazer, inhaled deeply, and stepped into the spotlight. On stage, a large screen displayed the Layla Incorporated logo, a stylized phoenix ascending from shattered chains. She scanned the sea of faces, entrepreneurs clutching notebooks, journalists poised with pens, investors leaning forward. In the front row, seated under a single spotlight, sat David, her new love interest, a former mentee turned co-founder. His warm smile grounded her. Good afternoon, Layla began, voice carrying across the hall. Today, we celebrate transformation of ideas, of companies, and of ourselves. She clicked the remote. Images of her early days appeared. The rooftop scene, the ramen bowl, the viral TikTok frame. Gasps rippled. From erased co-founder to global narrator, my path wasn't linear, but it was mine. She spoke of resilience, of building Layla, incorporated on authenticity and community. She invited Sola, the single mother from Chapter 17, onto the stage. Together, they unveiled the first cohort of female-led startups, each spotlighted with elevator pitches and next-step funding commitments. The audience erupted into cheers and standing ovations as partnerships were announced. Government grants, international accelerator ties, media sponsorships. Halfway through, Layla paused and gestured to David. He joined her, handing her a single red rose. She laughed, brushing the petal to her cheek. Even in chaos, love finds you, she quipped. The crowd cooed. As the summit neared its close, Layla delivered her final charge. If someone tries to erase you, write your own story, then share it with the world. She raised her hand. The audience mirrored her in a unifying gesture. The summit ended in a flurry of selfies, handshake lines, and press flashes. Outside, overnight headlines lauded Layla Obiora's tech triumph and the woman who would not be erased. Social media exploded with #RememberLayla. Clips of her keynote trended globally. Later, back at her office, Layla placed a red rose on her desk beside the rooftop photo. David joined her, offering coffee and celebration hugs. She gazed out the window at the Lego skyline, bright, alive, and full of infinite potential. Her phone chimed. First trailer for the Netflix series. She tapped play, watching her journey flicker to life on screen. Satisfied, she closed her eyes and whispered, "They'll never forget me." And this time, the internet agreed. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, comment, and share. Also turn on the bell to get more of our videos. See you in the next story.